Greetings, Blade fans. Welcome back. What have we got for you today? Well, the theme today, and it's a theme sort of collection video, is Japanese-inspired blade designs. We are all familiar with this guy in the middle. I'll back out just a little. We all recognize that tip, and that is the famous, not infamous, designed by Cold Steel and Lynn Thompson going back to the mid to early 80s. This is the Kobun Tanto, and it followed on the heels of the original Cold Steel Tanto. And the remarkable thing about this is that it was previously, usually, I'd say 99% of the time perhaps, seen only on swords as an armor-piercing type of a weapon. Now, there are those of you who are out there who are definitely scholars of Japanese-style knives. You know all the terminology, you know the history. I am only familiar as much as I began using these implements back in the 70s and the 80s. I started learning Japanese martial arts actually back in the 60s, but we used no-edge weapons, and I think the most we used was perhaps a short staff, a bokken. Anyway, let's do a full reveal here, and then we'll get to looking at some of these guys. And they are some beautiful bladed implements here. So, since I started here, let's talk about this Kobun. It's a very popular version of the Cold Steel Tanto. And the original Tantos did not have this chisel point. I've shown a lot of knives that I called Tantos, and I had people replying back in the comments, well, no, that's not a Tanto. And I pretty much know they're thinking, well, if it doesn't have a chisel point, that's not a Tanto. But only if your education and your history goes back to the 80s. Because prior to that, you didn't see very many Tantos from custom makers or elsewhere sporting this really nifty chisel point. One of the advantages of the chisel point is that you get a secondary point out of the deal. You get the primary point, which is usually pretty thick and robust, difficult to damage. And you get the secondary point for slashing. So not only on this knife do you get this very broad, kind of a shallow belly on the knife, and a medium-high grind, a hollow grind that makes the knife quite sharp. But you got an edge out here, a secondary edge, and you get a secondary point. And this one's got craton for the grip. It's very slim. It's very comfortable. If you have the knife, you know why it's good. But we're going to move on from there. We're not going to leave that alone, because here we have a different type of Tanto, and I am speaking general classification of the knife, not specific. This is the Osoraku Zukuri style of blade that is very popular with both James Williams and Chris Williams, and this is a Chris Williams design made for them by Lion Steel. It is the Williams brand, and it is from Sleipner Steel. Pretty decent steel. I believe it's a Swedish steel. And here we have the traditional swedge on the top, still with a flat. Very much a piercing sort of design, and this is a design that, along with the chisel point, probably even more so than the chisel point, can get between the plates of armor and do some damage underneath just about any sort of protection, any kind of soft protection, that is. You know, aside from like trauma plates and what have you. This has a really nice black micarta handle with a completely encapsulated tang. 3 screws hold the 2 handle halves on. It is extremely convenient, and this will drop in the pocket without any problem. 3.5-inch blade, and yes, it is a pocketable front pocket or back pocket or what have you, sort of a Tanto style knife. Now, moving on to one you may not think is Japanese inspired, and I haven't heard from Michael Jarvis, the designer of this knife from Auxiliary Manufacturing. This is a relatively new knife, that this Karl Jr. has any sort of Japanese roots. And yet, it is very similar to a Kiridashi. If you have seen Kiridashi knives, very often they are ground only on one side. They're chisel ground, so a true chisel grind. We grind it on one side and keep it flat on the other. This, however, is a V grind. And it's a beautiful knife that holds extremely well in the hand, full grip on the handle, and a 3-inch blade. And yes, I feel it is in that triangular shaped Kiridashi style. This particular one is out of AEBL and nicely stainless. Got some beautiful stone pattern on the top there. Beautiful stone pattern on this particular sample on the handle on top of a carbon fiber, a rich carbon fiber sort of material. Not sort of, but carbon fiber material. So that's 3 out of them. And I'm going to go up next to a Josh Mason design that you may see near the top there. Let me see if I can pull up my list for you. Yeah, I have my cheat sheet here. So this is being called a Kwaiken. Okay. Now the Kaiken and Kwaiken, this is Osoraku Zukuri mini Kaiken, but the term Kaiken and Kwaiken, I understand, are interchangeable. So we have this Josh Mason up here, and here's a fine example of a chisel grind. There you have it, flat on one side with a beautiful belt satin going longitudinally, if you can see that. And this blade is so freaking razor sharp, you would not believe it. It just screams sharpness, mainly because of that chisel grind, because the edge comes down to such a fine, fine edge. Even more so than like a hollow grind V grind. And is this hollow ground? Yes, it is. That's why. Definitely, I don't know if you can see that, but look at that curve in there. Look at that dished out curve. So extremely sharp and a beautiful Tsukamaki wrap, making it very traditionally Japanese. Very much like a sword. I liked this one because of the tan or brown over the black. No, there's no ray skin underneath. This is cord underneath there, but still, he does a beautiful job, and it's extremely grippy because of that. Now, the steel on that one is, here I am back to my crib notes again. That's from 8670M. Definitely couldn't have remembered that one. 8670M, it's a high carbon steel. I think it's used on saw blades. But now we're moving on to the RMJ Unmei, and Unmei means destiny in Japanese. I think this was an in-house design by RMJ. It's my first and only RMJ knife, and it is from MagnaCut, of course. Unmei, MagnaCut. There it is, showing you the wrong side. So this one, they are also saying is in a Kwaiken style design. So it's a little different, but yes, you know, you can see some similarities. There were some different sorts of Kwaiken designs. So they're calling it that, as far as I know. Let's see. So yes, I'm at the RMJ website, and they are calling the Unmei a Kwaiken. See if I can validate that for you. There you see it right there. Japanese Kwaiken style. So some latitude with this, but I'll tell you, this is one beautiful knife. This is about a 4-inch blade. Is it 4 inches? Hadn't planned on doing much measuring. Yeah, it's a 4-inch blade. And since I got the tape on it, it's a 8¼ inch overall. Just a real comfortable, slender handle, but very grippy because of the 3D milling that they did on this. Nice, very short run of jimping right there. You're not going anywhere. And beautiful stonewash on this guy as well. Hard to come by. About $265 they're getting for this. So it's actually not too bad a deal in Magna Cut. Don't know which way I want to put things, so forgive me. So where are we at now? Well, we're at a fox knife, and this is the Ryu, R-Y-U, and this is very much a traditional sort of a Tanto blade. You may not know that, you may disagree. If you're thinking that Tantos, as I said earlier, are only the cold steel chisel point variety, but this is more or less how many of the original Tantos looked. And this is a design by Ken Vehikite of Blackrock Knives. And he makes customs of this, and he licensed out the design to Fox to make this commercial version. This one's in Nylox, very interesting steel that's, I believe, got mostly stain-resistant properties, but maybe trending a little bit more away from the stainless. You'll have to look that one up. I know I did a review on this and explained a little more about Nylox. Can't pull all that information in from my head at the moment, but look at that nice stonewash on that. And a very favorite blade amongst a lot of people who enjoy Ken's designs. Full-size handle on there with a very nice persuader and some very effective jimping, widespread, crowned spine and crowned tang, just like you might find on a Japanese style knife. I think we've got a crown spine. No, we don't. We've got the swedge on the Williams. Only one here, I think, maybe with a crown spine, but we'll see. Maybe the Bastinelli does. Really comfortable knife. Has the rock pattern on the handle, but not on the blade. Ken will also give you the rock pattern on the blade. Very piercy point, and yet a full belly. So you get a lot of utility out of this, as well as tactical use. I know tactical use is becoming kind of a silly thing these days because it's used so often. But how about this all blacked out guy here? This is a collaboration between Bastian Coves of Bastinelli Knives and Fred Maestro of, I guess, Maestro Defensive Systems. I think that's what he calls it. It is a very slender sort of a Tanto knife with no chisel grind, but we have the differentiation in the grind there, giving it that same secondary point as we see on the chisel pointed Tanto, but a very elongated point. Got black on black, so I'll give you a little contrast there. This one, I think you've got the choice of serrations or not serrations. I always like a short run of serrations on a long knife. Gives me the advantage to cut slippery strapping and rope and whatnot should the occasion arise. And yes, here we have the crown spine that is well known on the Fox-made knives for Bastinelli, and a tang that stands proud of the handle. There is also a trainer that I have that is a relative duplicate of this knife. All plastic trainer, fits in its own sheath. So you can certainly practice drawing and using that knife without harming your sparring partner, so to speak. There's the Bastinelli mark. This one's an N690, steel very commonly used in a lot of the earlier Bastinelli knives. It has a longish blade. I think it's around 6 inches. Nope, 5 inches. Very lightweight, very quick, and definitely deadly. That is the protect yourself. If I hadn't mentioned that, the PY, protect yourself. I saved my favoritist for last because I designed this knife and got some help from Morgan Koens, who made the knife. It's a custom knife. I wanted a traditional styled Japanese Tanto with the traditional handle that kind of has a waist that goes in here, as you can see in the middle. It is a coral red micarta, nicely sculpted by Morgan. I think he hand dremels these things. I mean, don't know how he gets it so perfect, but he does so much hand work, and he does great grinds, obviously, as well. This one is bead blasted on the flat and satin on the swedge and on the main blade. It's from S35VN. He normally likes to work in Nitro V quite a bit, as well as 80 CRV too. But this is S35VN. It's a heavier knife than it appears. It's a pretty thick stock. How thick is the stock, you might ask? I think it's like 3/16. Let's get it right there. It's 0.18. So in millimeters, 4.6 millimeters. So it ain't thin, 4.6 millimeters. It's a heavy knife. I don't know that he did any weight reduction under the handle. That's something I wouldn't mind seeing maybe in the long run, since we can remove the handle slabs. But it definitely feels confidence inspiring in the hand. There's plenty to hang on to here. This is a thick handle, like 0.84. So, you know, about over 3/4 of an inch. But again, plenty to hang on to. And there is, again, your traditional Japanese Tanto pattern with the traditional swedge at the top. You see this on a lot of the folding knives designed for Boker. And sorry, but the designer who does a lot of knives for Boker in this style, his name eludes me at the moment, having a senior moment here. But we're simply calling this the Japanese style Tanto. It really has no name. And again, it's one of a kind. I think although he may have turned out one or two, Morgan likes to turn out one or two or three all at the same time, and then he may not ever do them again. So in that regard, I like that because I get a knife that's very unique. Anyway, this is the only one of this design that has this handle and this steel and finish combination. Well, there you go. I got through 8 knives. Is it 8? Yep, 8 knives. And I hope you enjoyed that little survey of Japanese-inspired blades, and you enjoyed the collection. Yeah, there's many, many, many more Tantos I have in fixed blades that could have been on the table today, but I think this was a wide variety of blade styles as well as designers and manufacturers. Don't forget to give this vid a like if you would, and come back and subscribe if you would, so you hear from me when I put up something new. And there's a few new blades that have just dropped or haven't dropped yet that you should see reviews on very soon from me. Be well, take care, stay safe.